the beginning was the Word. The power of the prologue. Prologue comes from the Greek prologos. Pro, before, and logos, of course, word. A strict definition is that it is an opening to a story that establishes the context and gives background details, often some earlier story that ties into the main one. People study the merit of prologues for fiction today. Not everyone likes them. Some editors urge you to get right to the story without delay. But freelance editor and former literary agent Lauren Oberwerger gives a good explanation of what a prologue does when it works well. The best prologues, she says, raise questions, convey some sense of mystery, launch us into the story in a compelling way, and always contain a strong element of movement and suspense. They offer a hook that the opening chronology might not provide. The first actions of a story aren't always enough to generate interest in what is to come. They offer a glimpse of a deeper past that establishes the context for what is about to be recounted. And they provide some foreshadowing, but letting you know what to expect much later in the narrative. They provide a bookend, finally, that will become the epilogue when the story is done. Our gospel reading today is known, famously, as the prologue to St. John's Gospel, and it has all the elements just described. It is the prologue of prologues, if we consider the etymology. Before the logos, literally, the story of how the word of words became flesh. The opening, an overview of how the logos, the first word, was revealed in history. It's fair to say that this generates interest in the story that will follow. So a strange man calls for repentance. What is so new and significant about that? Until he speaks of one who is to come, and we are prepared to sense the full weight of what that means. It raises important questions. In the beginning was the Word. What beginning? Why should we have that distant beginning in view? The Word was with God, and the Word was God. How can it be both God and with God? This is a mystery that no one can fully explain, but we are about to delve into it. And this Word dwelt among us, that is, tabernacled, put up its tent. So that must mean that it is among us, but not of us. Or is it of us, since it is the source of all that is? This mystery might convey a sense of darkness and foreboding, except the author adds that in this Word is life, and the life is the light of men. There is darkness indeed, but this Word is the antithesis, that which darkness has rejected. We find out that this Word, this light, came to his own home, and his own received him not. Who are his own, and who didn't receive him? Does this refer to us or to someone else? Surely, I wouldn't be included in those who rejected him. Or am I? St. Augustine said that the refusal to recognize the truth doesn't deny the fact that one is in the presence of truth. Then he says, a certain Platonist proclaimed that the words of St. John's prologue should be inscribed in gold and placed prominently in every church. So even this non-Christian recognizes the truth herein. The prologue challenges us even as it draws us in, thereby effectively launching us into the gospel story, and creates, as the literary agent Oberwerker urged, a strong element of movement and suspense. We are in the swiftly flowing current and carried along as we hear a promise, an invitation, or is it a confirmation? But to all who received him, who believe on his name, he gave power. He gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And then, the greatest mystery that raises the biggest questions and launches us deep into the story. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. Then what's more, we have beheld his glory, glory as of the only begotten of the Father. In light of this prologue, Pope St. John Paul II quotes Isaiah, "The word that goes forth from my mouth shall not return to me empty, without having done what I desire and without having carried out that for which I sent it." Pope St. John Paul II said that it is clear from this text that the biblical Hebrew dabar, which means word, is not merely a word, but it is also a realization. It is an act. Based on this, the prologue not only launches us into the story of St. John's Gospel, but it becomes part of our story, or we become part of his story. We are reminded in this season that he came to his own in utero, and his own didn't receive his mother or St. Joseph into their own family guest quarters. And the pattern continues in our fallen world. For the world will at times reject this truth in you. And, at the worst cases, the demonic element of our world rejects this truth with ferocity. But the prologue of St. John's Gospel is so powerful that it is commonly used in exorcisms. And one account of the exorcist Monsignor Stephen Rossetti, with a particularly difficult subject, when the prologue was read, the demon screamed through the afflicted subject and told the exorcists to stop. They writhed in pain and promised anything to get them to stop reading these words. Rossetti tells us why. He explains, "Theologians tell us that it was precisely the news of God's incarnation in Jesus that caused Lucifer and his minions to rebel in envy. And in exorcism, it is pure torture to hear it proclaimed for those demons who are envious of the incarnation. For the demons and all who reject God, the light is blinding. For those who love him, we are transfigured by the light, and it shines through us." The prologue states that the light has shined in darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And so this beginning of the gospel anticipates the end, the epilogue of the gospel. The last lines of John's gospel are, "Now there are also many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written." The content of those would-be books are still being written in our lives, even as you and I base our lives on the Word made flesh, incarnate in this Mass, incarnate in our lives, dispersing darkness with grace and truth.